The COVID-19 pandemic did not just change how business operates, it also made a serious and hopefully not very lasting impact on the public sector in the UK. And to find out more about what government organizations can do to accelerate the return to normal, we are joined by Andy Astbury, Director for Public Sector at IBM UK and Ireland. Hello, Andy.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very, very well, thank you. I'm gonna get straight into the questions. Research by Omdia suggests that the pandemic has widened the gap between leaders in digital transformation who are benefiting from their prior investments and laggards who have been hit hard by lockdown restrictions and right now are probably thinking where they're gonna cut projects, and AI is usually a suspect here, right? Do you think the pandemic will accelerate digital transformation in the public sector or slow it down?
So I think that on the whole, public sector have adapted very well to the challenges that the pandemic have thrown at them. I think the way that they've adapted to working from home very quickly, the way that they've continued to deliver services to citizens through that period has been fantastic. So I think what the Omdia researchers showed us, however, is that I think it was about 90% of the respondents were recognizing that they should have invested more heavily in digital transformation prior to this hitting them. But I think also that the speed of transformation will continue to change now and get faster. I think there's also some statistics there that suggest that 87% are saying that the technology has actually helped them manage the impact of the pandemic. So I think absolutely that the speed and the investment will continue within digital transformation. And I think now, the real secret is what transformation should they put in place? I think the focus needs to be on looking at what's the post-pandemic world going to look like. I think there's an opportunity to now look at business processes and to reinvent them, to redesign them, and to deal with working a different way. And so, an IBM view would be, you need to start looking at that new business model. What's it really going to look like in a post-pandemic world? Then start to look at how you could break those business processes down. How do you start to automate some of those processes so we get rid of some of the mundane tasks? And also looking at it from the user's point of view, many of the people who are going to be doing this work are going to potentially be working from home for much longer. The traditional office environment may not be the same as the pre-pandemic world. So I think there is a great opportunity for departments to relook at the business processes, to redefine the business models in which they will go forward, to put automation in there to make it less mundane, and then to infuse with data and AI to make the services more intuitive, more insightful, so that we're getting much better service, much better outcomes to the citizen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in a way, sort of like use this opportunity, use this reset, like you can actually do some good with it, even though, like the original circumstances are not that good. Thank you. In the past 3 years or so, more than 20 countries have announced national AI strategies. Mostly hoping to capitalize on the power of AI, and AI impact on citizens is a secondary consideration usually. So do you think AI can be used to meet some of the new challenges faced by the public sector during the pandemic? For example, in Argentina, they're using AI algorithms to decide which sections of the country can come out of lockdown and which can't. So do you think solutions like that could be applied in the UK, and do you think we're actually in desperate need?
Yeah, and absolutely, and I think, to be fair to the UK government, part of the manifesto was indeed to be investing in AI, to be building out centres of competence. We've already seen the research centres invest in this way. Some of the leading universities in the UK are doing exactly that and leading the forefront of that challenge. But I think there's also some really good examples and practical examples of where departments and organizations have actually taken advantage of AI and what it can bring. We could look at Avon and Somerset Police, for example. They have been deploying digital workers and RPA in order to automate some mundane tasks. So they started with a very simple use case, and then have put that process in place, identified what the processes are, put RPA in place to automate it, thereby freeing up back office staff to be redeployed in a much more effective way. And given some of the challenges that the police forces are under, it's a great way to get return on investment and to make more effective use of the funding that they have. I think there are other examples again, where departments have put in digital assistants, chatbots, if you like, to handle the consequences of pandemic. So what we saw when the pandemic struck was a lot of people moving towards, home working. That put great problems and great demand upon the call centres and the contact centres that would normally be in place. And so digital assistants have been there in order to automate much more of that frequently asked questions, trying to get information out, allowing them to provide information to the citizen to make speedy information available. And again, that's been an example of AI helping out the impacts of the pandemic and giving much better service to citizens. And again, from an IBM point of view, we've got a number of examples where we've deployed AI and data-driven solutions. And what you got to think about is the objective, therefore, is to drive efficiency, looking at areas where you can deliver better customer service, or even things like better outcomes. We've got some examples, for example, in the health service, where the use of AI is helping deliver better outcomes for things like cancer, for example.
And how about this? So same survey, Omdia, 80% of respondents told us their managers anticipate significant investment in cloud infrastructure going forward. And this is tied to the pandemic. The government needs more digital services, doesn't really want to run data centers. And again, you probably know about these cases where just like UK government has tried to have its own, like infrastructure companies and run its own infrastructure. It doesn't always go well. So what does this increased interest in cloud mean for the cloud market and for IBM in particular? How are you guys positioned to meet this need?
So I think there is great demand. I think UK government has been one of the early adopters of public cloud. I think typically where those investments have been are really on front end services. So typically an organization has gone around redesigning the front end in how we engage with government for particular services. What they haven't been able to do as yet, and I think this is going to be the next big investment area, is how they deal with the legacy systems, the back office systems that support those business processes. And so that is a challenge and something that needs to be overcome. I mean, it is difficult, but it's the area that's holding them back really in terms of really transforming the way that the organization works. So in terms of, what's our view of the impact and the future? Well, our experience is that the future is going to be hybrid. So it's, there is going to be a place for public cloud. I think it's a market that's going to grow. But I think there's also a recognition that not all of the services, not all of the workloads can be actually placed in a public cloud. You do actually need some of that infrastructure, some of that workload on premise. And so our view, the IBM view, is very much it's going to be a hybrid world going forward. And the key for the on-premise element of that hybrid story is that it needs to be an agile infrastructure. So it can't be it can't be static. You need what we would call a digital platform. That's on premise, that can scale, that can adapt, and adapt to meet the different workloads that exist. And again, our view is when you start to look at those back office processes, let's reinvent them for the future rather than just replicating what we had in the past. Start to think about building once and deploy anywhere. So break it down to Lego-sized bits of components. And then build that componentry up to meet the needs of the business, but then place it wherever you need it. So yes, it could absolutely be in a public cloud, and we'll see greater investment in that space, but it could also be on premise, and then you need the agile infrastructure to support it. And in reality, that's why we invested in and procured Red Hat. That is all about getting component-sized parts of a business process, being able to put them in a container that are open and secure and scalable, and then place them wherever the workload needs to go. And that's the beauty that Red Hat brings us. And then you also need some skills and experience to be able to pull all of that together. And again, IBM has that in spades. And so I think the market for cloud is absolutely going to grow. We'll definitely see more workloads being placed there, but in our view, it's also going to be a hybrid world, and you need to manage the scalable infrastructure on both sides of that equation.
And if you could give one key advice to a government organization or department, like what's the most important thing now when when they start to look at their infrastructure, their operations, like reevaluating some things, how do you return to normal? What would you say is the number one concern?
So I think that there's never one, right? But I think that the real focus now needs to be on how are we going to go and manage work in a post-COVID environment. So we've managed to get through the initial shock, but what's the big key for me is how are you going to plan for a post-COVID environment? And in my view is that the secret bullet is go back and look at the business and the business model. Look at how you want to deliver services going forward and look at that from a user-centric point of view. You've got a great opportunity now with a bit of a blank canvas to say, how do we want to design work for the future as opposed to being constrained with everything we had in the past? And so I would say, start to redefine the business processes for the business requirement going forward. Define those business processes and then start to look at how you could automate them. You don't have to do the most difficult use case from day one. Pick something small, pick something that you can deliver quickly, see the benefit from it, and then go and repeat. I think that's the priority for the next 6 months.